Hey everyone, Yan Zhao here tonight. Special guest JP from Eudaimonia Comics, which I'm pretty sure I said right. um, he's got a new campaign, Noirlem, which is a mystery, I am led to believe. And we'll talk about the campaign and get into a bit of how do you write a good mystery. So how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, yeah, I did not have Noirlem on the radar, but it's interesting. I didn't realize you were the guy who did Eudaimonia. It's something that was on my to look out for list a while ago.
Well, first off, I hope you enjoy the digital I sent you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I guess my kind of shtick is basically to do out there kind of projects that are pulling in influences from like wild places, like World War I and old English poetry, and now I'm kind of going into like noir and the detective genre.
Yeah, it to me the book was it really caught my eye because I remember when you were promoting it originally, it had sort of like an out there theme, but the colors made it look, or I shouldn't say the colors, but the art in general. One part looked very grounded and the other part was very dreamlike. It was a very interesting combination.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I really worked closely on the art, and what we were basically going for was kind of surrealist. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like how can you actually depict the chaos of war? You know what I mean? Like unless you've done that, unless you've been there, and I haven't. So this was basically my attempt at capturing like the closest approximation through surrealism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it really came off. Um, and so, with your new campaign, Noirlem, we also see some musical themes.
Yep.
Uh, is is music a big driving factor in your life?
Yeah. So I would say definitely like a lot of it kind of drives a lot of what I do. I've been inspired by music heavily. I would say this is probably one of my favorite eras for art and music, generally speaking. Um, so music is definitely going to be a big part of the story, and then it's going to drive even more in the next one and kind of ramp things up because I think music is just one of those things that it's so relatable, and uh, we can all kind of pinpoint moments in our life where music just kind of drove us and carried us along. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd say definitely the musicality of the book is pretty key.
So why don't you run us through what is Noirlem about?
So Noirlem is the origin story of a detective. The idea for the book actually started with the name of the main character, which I just think is a great name for a great old timey name. The main character's name is Coleman Carmichael, and the character is basically somebody who is a consummate learner. He lives in Harlem in 1929. He substitute teaches when he can, he tutors when he can, but he's always driven by the desire to just learn and know more. And so what happens at the story's outset is there is a kind of mysterious death in his apartment building. And two detectives show up and they kind of look over the scene and give it their kind of, oh, well, this is what happened. And he's just there and he tells them, no, look, there's more to this and you need to take a second look. You need to look deeper into what happened here. And the older detective is like, I've seen everything, But the younger detective is really curious. He's like, well, what does this guy know that I don't? And so the detective is like a young, kind of rookie-ish homicide detective, and he wants to know what Coleman knows, and it kind of drives the plot forward. And they end up kind of teaming up. The detective brings him this series of murders that he kind of has a feeling that they're linked. And once they team up, they kind of start to put all the pieces together that, yeah, this is the work of one man, the Hudson River Killer, and they set off to track him down.
Very cool. Um, so one thing I noticed too is 90 pages.
Yep.
Oh, that's pretty good. Do you feel that it was that sort of you wrote it out and that's where it ended up, or do you sort of have the feeling that a lot of these crowdfunders these days they need to be a little longer? A couple of years ago, people were doing a lot of like 48-page crowdfunders, but
I would say I can't really give advice on what other people should do. When I initially wrote it, it was 80 pages. I got a couple eyes on it who said, and some of the feedback I got was, hey, you know, this feels like a little bit rushed as far as like character development. So I kind of went back and I basically reinforced it by providing a lot more of those character moments that kind of give you a bit more depth and feeling and realism to the characters. Because what the story is doing is it's not only telling that overarching mystery, it's also setting up a character that I would like to come back to, a character that I'd like to be around for a while. And I think really in order to do both, it needs to be this long.
yeah,
Like what I want a complete, cohesive story that I don't want to have a book where people are at the end, you know, there's anything unresolved.
yeah, I have noticed that is a kind of a big problem recently with a lot of crowdfunded books I've backed. Is I'll get them in and they have like, you know, a pretty good setting the scene, you know, how they get the superpowers or what's the conflict, and then like right when it should get into the meat, it's like, okay, we'll see you in a year or two.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guilty of that myself. The books on the right there, How to Die, I feel like we're a little bit rushed. And it's something that I plan to make amends for in number 2, but it's part of that, you know, learning curve and that growing pain. That's why I think Noirlem, I think, is going to be, people are going to get a lot more out of it. And hopefully I'll be able to rectify that on How to Die number 2. So what I'm saying is I'm guilty of that myself.
Well, hey, it's all right. Everybody learns as they go along. So what is it about this era specifically that drew you to it?
Well, I just graduated from college like a couple of years ago. I was at Old Head, you know, in the classroom, and I studied philosophy, literature, and history, and those 3 things kind of aligned into the period that I just really enjoyed, and that's like late 19th century, early 20th century. When art and philosophy were kind of, you know, really formulating a response to the Industrial Revolution. There was just a lot of fascinating things going on. And so the 2 things that fascinated me most were World War I and the Harlem Renaissance. Like those two things, and the Harlem Renaissance just being like probably my favorite literary period of all time.
So when you write, do you listen to music?
Yeah, it usually involves coffee and music. But yeah, something to keep the flow going.
And like, are you kind of the type of person like you just need something to drown out the noise in your mind, or do you use music specifically when you write? Like, for example, if it's like a hectic action scene or something, you'll play something faster, more upbeat, or you know, if it's like a slow romantic scene, you'll put on some sort of romantic music.
I wouldn't say I do that. I would say I usually just excuse me. I usually just stick to like jazz pretty much, or like jazzy, you know, the chill hop stations, like just throw those on and
yeah. All right. And so we can see a scene of some music being played here, but do you have any jazz musicians of the day that make an appearance in Noirlem?
No, but what I do have is a fictional musician. So my favorite writer of the era was a guy named Claude Mckay, who was basically credited with kicking off the Harlem Renaissance. And one of his books, one of his novels was called Banjo. He was a poet, but he did some novels as well. And he is referred to in the story, the character, because the character's name is Banjo. So the name of the character is referenced in the book. and he will be a fully fleshed out character in the second book. But there are tons of references in the book to other writers of the period. So I'm trying to think of an example. So like the name Claude will be used. There's a character named Mrs. Hurston who's a reference to Zora Neale Hurston. So there's a lot more literary references than specific music references.
I see. So I was taking a look at your YouTube channel earlier as well. And lots of interesting takes. So the one that really caught me was what makes a good mystery? And I especially enjoyed the part about how wonderful shows like Sherlock and sort of what the state of mystery has become in like modern mass entertainment like TV. So would you mind breaking it down for us just a little bit? What has gone wrong with mystery writing in modern entertainment?
I think especially on television, I think there's this kind of misunderstanding that the mystery can take a back seat to the character. Like, I don't know if it actually was Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man that just kind of ruined characters, or maybe it was like House. I don't know, but like, there's this idea that like just having a wisecracking protagonist kind of absolves everything else in the show. But yeah, I see a lot of mysteries, and I just don't see a lot of good mystery. Like, there's exceptions, but that's just something I've picked up on. I kind of go into it about how like House and Sherlock specifically focus on just having a main character that just has all the answers, and kind of forgetting that as an audience, that mystery has to be as important as the main character. And if you forget that, you're basically slipping out of the mystery genre as a whole.
Yeah, I think you're right. It seems to be, well, I kind of wonder if it's like a subset of the quote unquote smart character. One thing I've noticed is in all these shows, if a character is smart, including all the recent Sherlock TV shows and things, what am I thinking of, like Young Sheldon and everything. If you're smart, it's okay for you to be a dick to other people.
Yeah, which is weird. Like it's weird to think about it like that, and I think I've probably been guilty of that myself. That just being an abrasive dick is the same thing as having a personality.
Yeah,
like Dr. Cox on Scrubs. Like these
yeah.
Like people try to like kind of drown their personality in and mimic.
Yeah, it's one thing I kind of I was thinking about this recently, and do you think it's more because it seems to be more that people want to identify with a character as a group, like this is X type of character or Y type of character, as opposed to like trying to relate with the character on like a more personal level, or like identifying with their journey?
I mean,
if that made sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to. It's hard to answer that without, sounding like someone who's saying like things have changed. They're not like when I was young. But I don't know if it's something to do with narcissism becoming more fashionable.
Yeah, it could be. Or I like to blame Twilight for a lot of this.
Okay.
Where the main character, what's her name, Bella, something like that. She was just like the writing was the most bland, like nondescript character you could have, so that the women who read it, they could put themselves into it. And I kind of wonder if, a lot of the problems that we're seeing with characters on TV is like that. And at some point, I wonder if like the detective, especially the smart detective, if someone was like, well, being a smart detective is you're kind of a jerk to everybody else, and like that just became the stereotype. So now
Yeah.
it's like you have smart guy, okay, he's a jerk, and then people sort of like, well, I'm a jerk sometimes, so I must be smart too.
Yeah. Well, the other side of it is also there's two sides of that. You have to be, if you're going to be a smart, abrasive dickhead, you have to be written cleverly. And if you're just kind of skipping that and just giving the smart guy the answers, that's not the same thing as writing a character smartly. You basically kind of put in a cheat code.
Yeah.
It's like writing that everybody else is amazed by them without actually showing why they're amazing.
Yeah, that seems to be popular in other areas of writing too. Like, oh, this lady's a total badass. And they tell you it, but she never actually does anything.
Yeah.
So, quick question from the audience: The Dungeon Delver. Have either of us seen the film They Might Be Giants? And what did you think of the context of in the context of a Sherlock Holmes film? I have not seen a movie called They Might Be Giants.
Yes.
Have you?
Yeah. No. I know the band name, but I haven't seen the movie.
Oh, sorry, Dungeon Delver.
I'm sorry, Dungeon Delver.
That's all right. But so, well, it's interesting. I had the Dungeon Delver on yesterday, and he writes a lot of tabletop role-playing games, and I think in all genres, mystery is one of the things that people like the most. They like going on that roller coaster ride of, oh, what's this? What's going on? And they like piecing it together. But I think as we're talking about modern TV shows, it's kind of hard to get there. So what's your take on how do you construct a good mystery?
I think a good mystery involves something that is seemingly impossible, but is slowly revealed to the viewer in a way that they don't really perceive, but that the protagonist can put together. And so if you don't have, if everything is too obvious that you can predict it, then the audience will lose interest. But if it's on the other side of that, if it's something that's just absurd, when it gets put together, it's not going to be satisfying. So it's a very difficult balance that I don't even know if my book is going to be as successful as I imagine it to be, but I can tell you that I have put an immense amount of thought into putting together a mystery that the reader is going to be able to look back on and see all of the dozens of things that they were shown before in the context of how it pointed them to the solution.
And so, when you want to construct it, like where do you start? Do you start with the solution? Do you start with where our point of view character starts out?
I would say when I wrote this, I started with the solution, and then I moved to the beginning, and then started putting the bridge together and finding lots of different ways to kind of nudge towards a certain direction.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's hard to talk about something that you can't reveal. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Feel free to talk a little bit more in the abstract if that helps. But
yeah. So even the title or the subtitle of the book, the long and short of it is a clue, and it's something that like you're going to get to the end of the story and you'll be like, what does that title? Oh, and it will make sense once you see the conclusion.
And so, is this the first mystery, the main, or shall we say, larger mystery story that you've written? Like you're getting your feet wet in there, or were you sort of like a mystery guy from way back when?
I would say when I first started writing, I was trying to be a little bit too clever, And so the only the only stories I would write would have twist endings.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like the first 4 pieces I had published had just kind of like, oh, here's the twisty ending. And so like I have practiced in it, but I think I've gotten away from I'm not like trying to be M. Night Shyamalan anymore. But it is something I've dabbled in.
Well, you always got to be careful to not go too M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll direct the next Avatar movie.
I think Netflix has you beat to that disaster. They're making a new series.
One day when we purge the earth from Netflix content.
It's such a shame what happened to Netflix too, because some of their older original content was actually quite good.
Yeah, but I don't remember it. It's like out of sight, out of mind. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I was just thinking this morning on the drive to work, like, I should really go back and watch those Daredevil
oh, yeah.
series, because, the new Shang-Chi is coming out. But I was thinking, like, wow, they really screwed up Iron Fist bad.
Yeah.
Like, for anyone who hasn't seen it, they had a scene where they invited their enemy to a sit-down spaghetti dinner, and the problem was they weren't good at cooking spaghetti. Like, who thought that was good? Who thought in a Kung Fu series that sit-down spaghetti dinner was the way to go?
That sounds like an episode of Perfect Strangers.
Yes. If they had Balky in there, I might have, rated that series a little higher. So you mentioned you were just out of school, and the Harlem Renaissance is really what inspired you to write this story. Let's say before you got into school, what were your influences then, and then how did they change as you were more exposed to different kinds of literature and different time periods?
I would say before I went back to school, it was probably like Doctor Who, Anthony Bourdain's writing, and I always give credit to my father. He's one of those guys. He's just kind of a natural storyteller. So I would like go to work and I would just hang out in the office, and the way he would talk to people, everything like casual conversation would sound like a really enticing story, or like telling jokes. Like telling jokes is like telling stories. So that's the person who made me want to become a storyteller. And then, yeah, going back to school, it was just kind of, I would read classic literature and then I would want to kind of respond to it. So Eudaimonia was basically my response to, I think it was Percy Shelley. I can't remember who it was, but it was, it was Sir Philip Sidney's Astrophil and Stella, which is like a long series of sonnets that tell a cohesive story. And so I read that, and then I started writing Eudaimonia almost immediately.
Oh, wow. So do you have a lot of other like literature-inspired works sort of milling around in the background? Or you're like, no, I'm laser focused on this one now?
I would say I'm always, finding new things. I have too many ideas, basically. So I have like the next 10 books kind of planned out. But the influences are everything from, classic literature. How to Die is very much inspired by the Max. Noirlem is inspired by both the Harlem Renaissance and then tons of like cozy murder mystery shows. After that, I think I haven't even started like on it, but after this, it's what is it? Really old aging cowboys from the Old West versus the earliest Chicago gangsters in like 1870 something.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, like seeing that kind of clash, because I don't know that there is a story like that, but there are two forces that existed at the same time. And so why not throw them into a box and see what happens?
Yeah, totally. And so I noticed too that it says here you've got Kanan White to do your cover.
Yep. It's currently being colored, but the line art should be up top. But it's an awesome cover. Oh wait, it's not. Wait, where is it? Did I take it off? Maybe it's down some. No, I took it off the page.
Oh, okay.
I put the Zippo there instead.
Well, it's all right.
Well, now I got to find it. I think it's on my tagged tweet. Or my pinned tweet.
Right. Give me a second.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to send it to you because I can't believe I think I meant to replace it, or I meant to put it somewhere, but I'm going to send it to you.
I think I'm spelling that wrong. All right. Yeah, send it to me, and I'll grab that up and.
Okay, I sent it to you. Well, that's cool because that means I get to wow you with this cover.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Kanan's work. Kanan is a cool dude, but he sort of disappeared. Like, I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either. But something that's kind of interesting is, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, something's kind of interesting is in the first Eudaimonia, one of the first streams I did for it was with Antonio Bryce.
Oh, okay.
And I was talking up the book, and I was telling him that, once we reach our goal, I'm going to add a side story called The Harlem Hellfighter, which is in the book. And he said, well, Kanan and I did a book called The Harlem Hellfighters. And I was
yeah?
I had absolutely no idea. Yeah, no, and it was a really good book. It was one of the only books. I thought that I had such a great idea by discovering the existence of the Harlem Hellfighter and putting it into a comic. And I was like, oh, nope, I'm wrong there.
Antonio's an interesting guy. He's another one. I got Brand not too long ago, and actually I'm about to put up a review of it. But I know there was a campaign for Brand 2, but it sort of disappeared, and I think Kanan was working on it. Maybe. I don't know. It's just I feel kind of bad because I like Brand, and I don't know what happened to either of them.
Yeah. I would say very underrated, both of them.
Yeah, for sure. And who do you have doing the interior pencils?
Interior art is being done by Roel Roque, and the colors are by Miriam Vassar, I think her name is.
Miriam Vassar? Oh, okay. And so when do you expect to go live with the campaign?
So I don't really have an answer for that yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing a real slow burn of a campaign, and what I'm doing is, so there's 2 videos on the page there, and they're both in just the line art. But what I'm doing is I'm doing a slow drip kind of tease, so people on the mailing list are getting, kind of weekly updates of where we're at, what's going on. Because I want to take my time a little bit more. I don't want to rush anything. I genuinely feel like my last campaign was kind of rushed. So I'm just really taking my time. And then what'll happen is with these updates, things are going to start looking better and better as you get them. So maybe you'll get one that says oh, hey, here's, a single panel from a page to check out the art. And then, whereas a couple months from now, you're going to have some really nice polished pages, lettered and colored. Just kind of build up the excitement a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The other thing is I don't want to launch until I have literally everything done.
Oh, so that's kind of impressive. I see 2 camps on this. Some people say nah, you gotta fund it first, and build up the excitement that way. But then there's a lot of other people who are like, no way, because then it doesn't get fulfilled for 2 years. So what made you decide, like, yeah, it's got to be done first?
Okay, so this is just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Not here to like step on anybody's toes or
Sure.
insult anybody in particular. I think that if you're saying that you need to get paid before you're willing to commit to making a book, that tells me that you're not really in this for the long haul, that you're not here to tell stories or build an audience or build a brand. You just want to do this one particular thing, and you can't really be bothered to do it unless you get a certain amount of money. I'm interested in people who just want to. I'm interested in storytellers. I'm interested in people who are willing to, have an okay sized audience and get a book in their hands and maybe catch a few more on the next one. So that's just how I'm going to do things. My third campaign, it was late and it was unacceptable. So everybody who backed How to Die #1 on the first campaign, they got 2 books instead of 1, because that's kind of unacceptable. My word is all I have. So if I say it's going to be there by this date, it's got to be there. Nothing else, nothing less.
That's a good attitude to have. It's funny because I was just on Indiegogo today trying to find out what the heck happened with a book that I know a lot of people have gotten months ago, and they're selling through a third-party site, but it seems like, many who backed the original campaign that was some years ago still don't have it in their hands. And at this point, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to give that guy another chance, even if the work is good. So I admire your commitment to doing it first. Do you want to take a look at the videos?
Sure. Well, hang on. Before you do, okay. My avatar is that Zippo. And let me tell you, this is like a big brain idea. Anybody who gets the book on the mailing list is going to get that nice, trusty detective's Zippo right there.
Nice.
So that mailing list is a mailing list you want to be on. I don't have a bookmark, and I don't have, I'm not going to have a sticker or a card. You're going to get a nice Noirlem copper detective's Zippo. So get on that list.
That's cool. I haven't seen, some people get perks getting on the mailing list, but I've never seen anything that nice as a mailing list perk.
Well, I was worried because, when you go to the post office, it's, do you have anything liquid, fragile, or potentially hazardous? But a Zippo is really just the case and the wick, so you're going to get that. The lighter fluid is on you. I'm not sending that in the mail.
Yeah, for sure. That would be a lot of replacements if something went up in flames.
But yeah, if you want to play that video,
All right.
I'm proud of the writing. I'm not as proud of my voice acting, but yeah, give it a whirl. I do not think you have sound.
Nuts. Okay, we're gonna have to do this old school. Wait, give me 1 second here. Can you hear it now?
I can't. Maybe the audience can.
No. Ever known someone who has? Ever arrested someone like that? Spoken to them for even a moment? No. Yeah, well, neither have I. No idea what would live in that man's head. But if I try, really try to put myself there, one thing I know for certain is that the first time I went and did it, it'd be a little bit closer to home than all the others. Why would you do that? Well, I wouldn't precisely. But after that first time, I'd be a little braver, go a little further, somewhere less familiar. A pattern is made without even realizing. And that pattern points us back to where it all started, with Mrs. Dorothy Masters of Morningside Heights. Well, say hello to the last moments of one Dorothy Masters.
By the way, the music just keeps playing. I just didn't want to interrupt the. I didn't want to cut off the video and cut off that smooth jazz.
That makes total sense. Sorry, I always have the problem getting music to play through this thing. It's one of those things that I always think, I got to practice that, and then I never remember until I'm on air, and I have to hold my mic up to my headphones.
Yeah, so that scene is basically the start of the investigation, where they don't really have a lot to go off of, but Coleman theorizes that if you have somebody that's going out and killing people week after week, statistically the odds are good that the first place he went to do it would be closer than all the others, and that even if the killer didn't mean to do that, a pattern would unintentionally be created that they can kind of work backwards off of. So if they go and investigate the area around where the first murder took place, they'll be closer to the killer than anywhere else.
And let's see, I think you said you had another one as well, right?
Yeah, the one up top is a different video.
There's another one up. Oh, hey, there you go. All right.
You were right. 4 murders, all things similar but nothing in common, apart from them being young ladies alone at night. White, save for Miss Gutierrez. Single gunshot, save for the 2 on Mrs. Masters. All of them leaving work, save for Mrs. Hurston. All long hair past the shoulder, except for Masters. Yeah, I hadn't noticed that. And all shot from the front, assuming they fell back, save for Hurston. Any idea what type of gun was used? Cartridges found at the scene for Masters and Gutierrez, 38. Well, that's no help. Can't swing a cat in Manhattan town without hitting one of those. But still, it tells us something. Masters and Gutierrez were the first 2. I mean, he wasn't picking up cartridges, but now he is. Is he worried? So you believe me then? This is one person. I wouldn't say I believe you just yet. Frankly, it's irrelevant. Well, how's that? Because if you're wrong, then it's just time wasted. But if you're right, it means we have 4 days to get this bastard before he strikes again.
Oh, you interrupted the smooth jazz lick.
Well, yeah, we can go back.
No, it's fine.
So, I think we get a pretty good flavor for what the comic is going to be like by these 2 videos. So one thing I'm wondering is, you really like all this, I don't know if classic literature is the right word to use for stuff from the early 1900s, but all this literature that stood the test of time, you're reading poets. What made you say, I should turn my story into a comic?
Honestly, it was kind of a natural fit for how I write. One of my favorite writers ever is Cormac McCarthy. So like No Country for Old Men and And if you read him, then you'll know he's the kind of writer that can spend 2 pages describing a rock, and I just could that's never been me. I don't have the attention span to write something that thorough. But comics were kind of a natural fit, because if there's one thing I'm usually good at, it's concision, and it's getting, what needs to be said onto the page with as little waste as possible. So it just kind of seemed like a natural fit for me. And then when I looked around at the different scenes, indie comics is a much more thriving ecosystem where people have just a lot more opportunity to kind of build themselves than traditional publishing or traditional self-publishing. Traditional self-publishing is like the saddest thing you've ever seen.
So no like Amazon exclusive release in the future?
No.
So you definitely seem like a guy who, before anything ever went on the page, you could see this in your head. So how is it working with an artist when, if you were writing a novel, everything would just be you on that page, whereas now you've got to work with someone else. So how do you find working with an artist in terms of like, balancing that? Well, it's got to be part of their vision and part of your vision.
Yeah, it's a skill that you have to. It takes a lot of work to be able to sit down, and I think it's something I've gotten a lot better at, like writing a comic script and kind of finding that sweet spot between, demanding to know how many blades of grass there are in a panel and giving the artist like no direction at all. I think it's something I've gotten a little bit better at. I like it when I'm surprised by an artist, when I see something that's like, oh, he is showing this from a different perspective, or there's something about this that I hadn't considered before. But there are still those times where you're like, this is really not how I imagined it, and it kind of needs to be, this way. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. But I think that's just something that, like, it takes a lot of practice to kind of get your head around.
Have you ever gone into like rewrites or changing the story a bit when you saw some of the art, like, oh yeah, I should play this part up, this looks great? Or just like you were saying, they're coming at it from a different angle. Has that changed the way that you think about it, and then you've changed the story? Or
I've done it a couple times, not often, but yeah, I've made changes to things after I see the art to kind of, keep what's happening, fluid and in line with how the artist did it. I've done that a couple times before, but not too often.
Okay. And so where do you see your comics journey going in the future? Is this, I talked to some people and they're like, yeah, I'm starting out my first few campaigns, but I hope to do this full time. Is this something you want to do full time, or you're like, no, I like this as a part-time thing? Or
I would say that I don't really think of it in terms of part-time or full-time. I think of it more in terms of like, how many stories can I possibly tell, and how many people can I get to come along that journey with me? Like, I know that might, like, you might think that sounds like, I don't know, silly, but that's just how I see it. Like, I want to tell stories the way I want to tell them, and however many people I can get to jump on that train with me, I'm here for.
No, actually, that makes a lot of sense to me. Some people are like, I'm sure you must know your boy Zach.
Yeah.
So his philosophy is he's doing what he likes, but he definitely seems like he's the kind of guy who wants to get a certain amount of product out per year, to maintain an income, which then allows him to do more of the creative work. And then you do see other people who are like, that doesn't matter to me. You know, I'll work my normal day job to make sure I get, you know, all my I's dotted and T's crossed. This thing is exactly how I want it. And for me, it's very interesting to see, you know, where people fall on that scale.
Yeah, I would say the only thing that bothers me is when there are people who have their own idea about that and have their own philosophy to it and think that if you're not doing that, you're somehow doing it wrong. I would throw on your boy Zach while I was at work and just, you know, let it go all day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right around the time that he started saying he started talking about it as if it was like, if you're not doing this much, don't even bother. And I was like, well, you know, you're talking about me and you're telling me that I shouldn't try because I don't have like a huge YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I understand the whole idea about like promotion and all that, but I don't see a correlation between being the best storyteller and being the best at, you know, YouTube algorithms. You know, like I just don't like, I don't see how those two things correlate to one another, that you should tell people that they shouldn't try to build something from the ground up.
Yeah, I think, well, I think if we take Zach in particular, if you go back through his video history for the last 4 years, I think we could put a very firm, could have been phrased better on there. You know, when I hear that, I hear exactly what you're saying, but at the same time, you know, I think he was looking at it as like there were people in old school comic publishing who were making a living, and he's coming at it like, well, how can I, not going through that system, make a living? And I think to a certain extent, you know, if that were your goal, if you were like, well, I want this to be my bread and butter, you know, and I gotta make house payments and, you know, you got kids who need braces and stuff, then it does sort of make sense. Like, oh, okay, well, these are, you know, the kind of numbers that you're going to need to be able to drive that kind of income. The thing that I think maybe he doesn't consider all the time is that there are people with other philosophies who are more like, you know, I really like making my book and I want to find like-minded people who would be interested in this kind of story. You know, so I definitely see what you're saying, but I can kind of see where he's coming from as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, the other thing about Zach is that he's a very naturally personable, charismatic person.
Yeah, that
has the ability to easily carry a YouTube channel that's going to be successful, and he still does a poor job of it a lot of the time. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
and I just don't. Not all of us were meant to be YouTube commenters. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I know that's the most popular goal for young people, is to one day be a YouTube vlogger, but like it ain't happening for all of us. And I guess I don't understand the idea. I'd be repeating myself, but it's like I don't see that correlation between being a good storyteller and being a personable YouTuber. Like they're not the same. Sure. They're very, very different.
Oh yeah.
And so if your channel is literally dedicated to the idea that comics matter, then you should be looking for those creators who are maybe doing good work but aren't blowing up on the hashtags, as they say.
Yeah, it would be nice if he, you know.
No, don't get me wrong. That's not me complaining. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, why aren't people paying attention to me? I'm just, whatever amount of success I have or don't have, that's on me. That's not on other people. Nobody's responsible for promoting me. You know, nobody's responsible for getting eyes on my book. That's how I feel about it. Like, I'm responsible for that in the end.
Definitely. No, but I hear what you're saying. One of the things that I like about Comicsgate in general is it's a pretty supportive community where, you know, if somebody's coming out with a book and they put out the bat signal like, hey, are there any shows I can go on? Or, showing art around, it'll be promoted. But yeah, I mean, I do think it would be nice if there'd be a little bit more of that, especially from some of the larger players. But
yeah, well, that's the best part about it, is that it's like minor league baseball, right? You have double A, triple A. There's always people. The only difference being you don't have to have a contract. You don't have to be signed to the team. There's always channels that are looking to have you on, or are willing to have you on, because they're trying to build their audience the same way that you are. So there's no shortage of people that they'll have you on. I was on Wise Guys, and I said something in the show like, "Hey, if you have anybody you think I should hit up, you should hit me up." And man, he sent me a list of like 60 people, and you were on it. And so that's why I sent you a message, is like, yeah, there's a lot of people out here, and it's like, it is what you make of it. I don't like, it's just something. I posted a video the other day about, like, I've seen so many people that talk about this, like, why aren't they promoting me? And it's like, I don't know, but you're supposed to kind of carry yourself here. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I've never once put thought into, like, why isn't this bigger channel? Why haven't they noticed me yet? I've never dedicated a moment's thought to that. If it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it's because I haven't done enough to earn people's attention.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is one of the most disappointing things when I hear people saying, like, oh, well, even though I think it would be nice if some of the larger players did, look for some of these smaller books a little more often.
Yeah.
But it's disappointing when I hear people sort of, get all bitter and stuff. Like, I've seen people, come from, like, just got on Twitter, like under 100 followers, no YouTube presence, no Instagram presence, and they want to launch a campaign, which is cool, but for some reason they're disappointed that they're not getting on the big shows, they're not getting the attention and stuff. And it's like, well, you got to go out and knock on the doors. You got to make people aware of you first. And then, especially after you get some work out and people can see, like, oh, yeah, I like that. Then you'll start getting more attention.
Yeah. The worst for me is when I see people, I don't know if you watched the video, but I've seen so many people that will comment, like, I bought this many books from this person, or I spent all this money on, like, super chats. And it's like, why would you think that would? And then it makes me wonder, like, well, how many people are just buying these books because they think they can climb the ladder? You know what I mean? Like, just buy their way in.
Yeah. No, that's not a good plan. Super chats, maybe. If you're on the right show at the right time, maybe. But yeah, no. Just buying books doesn't help.
I have to think about my words way too carefully to ever try that, because if I say something in a chat, it's going to be stupid. I need to, like, write it and then rewrite it and edit it, and then I might be clever enough for somebody to notice it. But then by then the moment's gone, and
I mean, it could just be a super chat of, hey, come check out Noirlem.
Yeah.
The best mystery comic in Comicscape.
There you go.
So, bringing it back, is there anything else we should know about Noirlem?
I would say, if you enjoy the style and swing of 1920s New York, with a cozy mystery and smartly written characters who, because, like, you see a lot of the dynamics on mystery shows is that the main character just has all the answers, and then they have a sidekick that is just kind of in awe of how great they are. But one of the points I want to make when I wrote the story is for there to be, like, some give and take. So sometimes Coleman is right. Sometimes the detective he's partnered with is right. They make points to each other. They grow together as characters. If that's what you want to see, if you want to see something kind of cozy like that with beautiful art, then get on that list, and that Detective Zippo is going to be awesome. So just for that alone, make sure you jump on there. I'm I'm going to be sending out updates, giving people kind of fresh views, kind of new things.
And also for your other works, is there somewhere where people can buy them now, or will it be available as like an add-on during the campaign?
So, How to Die, I'm going to have bundles on the next campaign. Eudaimonia, I don't know if you noticed, but in that picture there, all the books, they have that first edition print at the bottom.
Yes.
To kind of mark the first time it was printed. I'm running out of those, so I'm going to have some bundles for Eudaimonia, How to Die, and Noirlem all together. But I'm pretty sure I only have like 5 left. So it's going to be like the big bundle on the next one to grab them. If you just want to check out digital versions, honestly, you can just hit me up. I'm more than happy to send over some digital copies to people to check out and see what Eudaimonia Comics is all about. Yeah, just hit me up on Twitter. I'll throw a copy your way, no problem.
All right.
But yeah, there will be bundles.
One more post of the link to the mailing list there. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time this evening. Thanks a lot for coming by. So if you're into mystery, if you're into 1920s Harlem culture, check out Noirlem. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll see everybody back soon.